I'm really loving the Batman and Robin set that McFarlane just dropped, but it does suffer from a handful of issues that I want to talk about today. I want to start off by saying that these are all some beautiful figures with a great set of sculpts, so nothing in this video is going to pertain to that aspect. And I really do believe that McFarlane has a nice catalog of sculpts to choose from with each and every one of their figures. It's honestly kind of a double-edged sword that they create all new molds for almost every figure that they drop, because it keeps it feeling fresh and a lot more personalized, but at the same time, we're losing out on basic functionality of these figures.
For lots of people who collect action figures, movement matters.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the time Todd just straight up talks out of his ass, because this figure's articulation right here is disgusting. Almost every single one of the joints is all around way too tight or just has absolutely no grip to it. Like, look at this arm. It doesn't even want to stay up at all. McFarlane has the occasional banger, and the rest of the figures in the set fit that criteria. This thing feels almost like it was created using a 3D printer that Todd found on Temu for $45. I mean, when I say the figure feels hollow, it feels hollow. This is probably the worst feeling figure that I now have in my entire collection, sadly. There are redeeming qualities to the figure though, such as the cape. Oh my god, that bat ass is insane. McFarlane has finally taken note of our opinions on the plastic capes and gave us something a little bit outside of their comfort zone. His cape is a lot more rubbery now and can flap around, giving the feeling of more versatility, even though it really doesn't, but I'll take it because it's better than what we were getting before. I still don't understand why the Batman movie pack of figures George Clooney got a cloth cape and this one didn't. I wish I had that one so I could do a comparison on it for you guys, but it sold out way too fast, and frankly, I'm not going to spend hundreds of dollars to review McFarlane figures. The sculpt is phenomenal though. You can tell right off the bat that this is George Clooney, and I didn't get any paint QC issues with mine. I should also add that we got the bat nips on the costume. That's definitely a plus for this figure, but no, there are a couple of things that help carry the weight that this figure was burdened with, but I still can't help but feel upset about this one as a whole. I mean, I guess it was nice that we didn't get any batarangs with him this time. I don't know about you guys, but I'm bataranged the hell out. I really don't know how many more iterations they have left in them before they start repackaging the same one, if they haven't already started doing that yet. I don't own every Batman that they've manufactured, so that's honestly really hard for me to say. What he did come with though is a set of ice hands that I do believe is to mimic this scene here. Like I said, a bit of fresh air to get away from those batarangs, and the ice is a nice touch too. Batman also came with Freeze's legs. Here's a look at those. The detail is great on them with all of these edges and curves, but I feel like the paint is just a bit bright on him, especially when compared to his face sculpt. But that figure has its own issues, and I'll get into that a little bit more later. Lastly, Batman's card has Poison Ivy's hair clipping right on it, and at first I thought this was going to be some sort of feature, like we could slot them all together somehow, but no, it was just laziness, and Robin suffers from the same problem. Speaking of Robin, they did this figure a lot better than Batman. This one feels a lot more on par with other McFarlane figures, and even if you don't intend to collect the whole set, this one is an easy recommendation. The articulation feels a lot better as well, minus the kneecaps, as those guys are pretty stiff. But all around, the only complaint that I can come up with is the red coloring that came on this figure. My camera is picking it up as red, but I assure you that it's closer to like a brownish orange, and it's just my red lights making it seem that way. The sculpt is just as good as Clooney's, and you can tell almost immediately that this is Chris O'Donnell's face. I would argue that it's damn near perfection. The details on his suit matches everything that I remember it being. We have the muscles spewing all over his body, and they captured that kind of Greek god effect that Schumacher was going for back when those movies were made. Robin includes even more ice, and these ones will snap onto his shoulder and his arm here to recreate the scene where he gets cemented in ice. Here's a side-by-side comparison. I do think that it would have been cool if we got an extra hand that was holding the diamond right here so that we could get a one-to-one comparison for the sake of our shelves looking a little bit cooler, but I appreciate the effort put forth by McFarlane on this Robin. Freeze's arms are also included. Here's a close-up on those. I have pretty much the same mixed bag opinion on these as the legs had, as they don't function very well due to his armor plate getting in the way, keeping him from flexing all the way to his bicep. This has pretty much become the norm for McFarlane BAFs, sadly, and I truly do hope that they find a way to give our future Build-A-Figs some more versatile posing. Lastly, here's Robin's card again. You can see Batgirl's hair clipping onto the image as well. I'm still not entirely too impressed with that. Batgirl is a great figure, and I have absolutely no problem with her. Her sculpt is spectacular, and the paint job is so simplistic that it works. She got some nice airbrush paint across her hair that gives her a little bit more depth and complements the rest of this head sculpt. And it does look like Alicia Silverstone, which I appreciate very much, as she never really got a figure figure that well represented her in the movie, like both Clooney and O'Donnell had gotten. The cape on this one was reverted back to the old style McFarlane capes, which to me was a very interesting design choice. You know, forget the part where I just said that she finally got her justice. McFarlane seemed to have run out of materials at the cape factory and had to resort back to Todd's Temu printer once again. Anyway, this sculpt is one of my absolute favorites, with lots of detail and ridges and material changes all throughout the figure, and it's easily become my favorite Batgirl from McFarlane as well. So 2 bangers out of this set so far, not bad. Hopefully Poison Ivy and Mr. Freeze can follow through on this set as well. Here's the pieces included with Batgirl. As you can see, we got the shoulder pieces, his gun with a removable piece of ice. I thought that was pretty cool, and an absolutely killer head sculpt. This is my favorite one out of the entire set. It looks exactly like Arnie, and they did the colors perfectly in my opinion. Her card doesn't have any characters clipping through them either, so this one was an easy W for McFarlane. Lastly, before Mr. Freeze, we gotta talk about my first true love, and the only good thing about this entire movie in my opinion, Uma Thurman's Poison Ivy. I couldn't tell you why they included her and not Bane in the set, especially when it was a line directly from the movie, but I suppose McFarlane felt that the other Bane BAFs that we had gotten were more than enough. Anyway, though it may be biased, this is my favorite figure in the entire set, hands down. The articulation felt the smoothest with not a single joint giving me any grief, and easily has the most impressive sculpt in the wave by far. That or she's hit me with her love dust and I'm just blind to this figure being absolute dog shit. The entire torso section has this rubbery feeling to it with some impressive sculpting on the leaves running all the way throughout and plenty of different shades of green, giving it more depth and contrast. She has bright fiery orange hair instead of her iconic crimson red, but I actually don't mind that and I think it looks fantastic. Here's a close-up on that head sculpt. Once again, you can tell right away who it is, and we got her iconic wing-tipped eyebrows, and they even threw some earrings on both ears and colored them, giving even more depth to this figure. She comes with the torso piece to Freeze, of course, which again looks fine but suffers from the same coloring issues that the majority of the rest of the figure has. There is some great detail here though, and I think it's time that we piece them together and finally start talking about my last set of complaints about this wave. Before we get there, I want to give you a shot of the cards overlapping each other so that you can see what I mean by this clipping issue. As you can see, Poison Ivy's hair is clipping into Batman and Batgirl is clipping into Robin. Now, whether that's them being lazy or wanting to preserve the original image for the sake of the fans is up to you, but I'm gonna go ahead and chalk it up to the first option. Right, now let's go ahead and build Freeze. He was super easy to put together, much like the other BAFs that we've seen from McFarlane, but I was scared of the legs, not gonna lie, because they seemed like they were gonna suffer from the same issues that Bane had, considering that it was pretty much the same system as his were. Luckily, I got mine on fairly easy and it only took a little bit of force. His butterfly joint ring gasket thingies also fell out, and there were arrows on each one indicating pretty much nothing. I originally had thought that it was going to line up with another arrow somewhere indicating which side each one was meant to go on, but I couldn't find any other arrows on the figure that corresponded to what was going where, so I chose to ignore it, I guess. Now, let's go ahead and get down and dirty, because I'm going to get blatantly honest here. This is the second worst figure in the entire set, right behind Batman. This is probably a hot take, but I don't care because I'm not going to lie about this. I hate this figure so much, and they did my boy so dirty. The head sculpt was amazing, and it was so good, and they were really on to something, but the rest of the figure has had me absolutely losing it. The coloration doesn't even match the head, and I feel like they put the entire budget into that one piece and then scrounged around for the rest of the figure. To be more specific, my biggest gripe is the coloration and the proportions. They got the colors and proportions mostly right on the rest of the figures, but regardless, his arms feel way too short and his shoulders sit way too bulky, at least for my taste. So love him if you want, but this one is a big nope for me. Here he is next to the Bane BAF just to show you how tiny he actually is, and then here he is next to Grundy as well. Even if he isn't supposed to be strikingly taller than everybody else, I feel like he looks scrunched up and that his chest and shoulders could have been just a bit wider. I don't know, he just looks awkward to me. The gun doesn't fit in his hand well either. You have to bend his hand to get him to hold it correctly, and even then the gun is slightly twisted and the hand that he's holding it in just looks awkward. The articulation is awful even for it being a BAF. There's no reason why they couldn't make his arm bend just a little bit more here, and that limits him so much. I don't know though. What do you guys think? Does anybody actually like this Mr. Freeze? I don't watch a lot of reviews on my own because I like to form completely unbiased opinions, and as it sits now, it's really hard for me to recommend going for the whole set. I guess if we broke this down to a conversation of value, then it would make sense to go for the entire wave. I mean, I spent only like, I think $80 on the whole thing, and that was directly from McFarlane's site. So to say that each figure was around $16 including Mr. Freeze, then it is technically a steal, but a lot of times I just feel like McFarlane would be so much better off if they just listened to our feedback. I do feel like some aspects of this wave are in the right directions, such as the sculpts and the paint jobs that we had got, but there is still but easily a lot of room for improvement. I want to thank you all very much for watching to the end of the video. Be sure and let me know what you guys think about this wave and also what waves you're looking forward to getting in the future so that I can talk about it and review them next. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and as always, stay awesome.